Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. I am Adam Weinrib, joined as always by FanSided's MLB insider Robert Murray. Blake Snell wanted only Dodgers fans to have a happy Thanksgiving. He announced his own signing in a jersey swap late Tuesday night, giving us fuel for this 1 o'clock Eastern show heading into the Thanksgiving weekend. And man, now we have to do another day, week, month of Dodgers deferrals discourse, I guess. But we'll talk about the MLB league-shattering or league-altering move from last night, plus the latest on Nolan Arenado, the buzz there, Juan Soto, the community forming around him. We'll take your questions, and we'll lead you into the weekend. And here to take me through everything is FanSided's MLB insider Robert Murray. As always, Robert, how you doing?
I'm great, man. It's been a very eventful last 12, 18, 24 hours. Blake Snell going to the Dodgers, did not have that one on my bingo card, at least the timing wise. I was not aware that was imminent, so that kind of caught me off guard. Found out some different people or a different radio host or media member was taking some shots. Thank you for watching the podcast, by the way, Dijon. But other than that, I'm doing great. Adam, how are you doing?
Good. I didn't know there were shots being taken. I guess I got to go through.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that offline. Yeah.
No, I'm not going to address it too much. I've always learned if someone goes low, you take the high road. And honestly, like, it's totally okay. I have no issues with it whatsoever. His opinion, totally irrelevant. Yeah, that's all I got to say.
I got to learn the lesson about taking the high road more often than not. I'm in too many beefs, I got to say. I want to be in fewer beefs. I'm a nice guy. I think I'm beef-free. But, here we go. And apparently those beefs extend to everybody now beefing with Dodgers fans because there are certain truths about how all MLB teams should spend a little more, should get closer to that ceiling, and you shouldn't demean the Dodgers for spending. And by the way, join us in the Discord if you want to keep these chats going. Become a member. Just hit join under the YouTube channel. Pick the Rumor Mill tier or the All-Star tier. That's where you can ask Robert and I questions between shows. But the All-Star tier gives you priority to get your questions responded to in the chat, as well as also gives you the opportunity for Q&As with Robert. We reserve an hour in there. Super valuable this time of year, especially heading towards the winter meetings. Also, subscribe to the Moonshot, which is our weekly baseball email newsletter where the FanSided MLB team, including Robert Murray, will break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, and behind-the-scenes info. So if you like what you see on the Baseball Insiders, join us for more of that in multiple places. And, the Dodgers, they were always going to be they couldn't get to the offseason finish line without stealing headlines back. But now we've got to talk about it because it's funny. I had some people last night who were like, the Dodgers had to patch up their perceived weakness by adding Snell to the front of the rotation. And I hear you, and I know that Game 4 of the World Series was a bullpen game, and I know they're losing Buehler theoretically and losing Flaherty theoretically, but also Shohei Ohtani's coming back to the rotation next year. Tyler Glasnow is coming back to the rotation next year. Eventually, Gavin Stone returns. They've got all this depth in the minor leagues. They're talking about Roki Sasaki. I don't know where Roki Sasaki's going, but I think a lot of us were looking at the Dodgers going, I don't perceive that as a weakness. That actually feels like a lot and maybe more than other teams have. So I'm not sure. There were a lot of things coming out yesterday that were like, it was evident that the Dodgers were going to have to shop at the top of the free agent market on the pitching side this offseason. And I was like, I don't know if I found that evident, but Blake Snell is one of the top 3 guys. They have now capped their rotation with an additional Cy Young superstar. How many innings you're going to get out of him? Similar question to what happened with Tyler Glasnow last year, and the answer was not enough, and he wasn't there by the postseason. But if in terms of pure stuff, in terms of excellence when available, it's hard to beat Blake Snell. And I think it's left a lot of fans asking, what's next? How did Snell come together so quickly? And are they out on Juan Soto? Are they out on Roki Sasaki? I'm inclined to think no on both of those questions.
No, as far as the Snell thing goes, let's start with that. Is last offseason, it clearly bothered him how long he lingered on the market and the uncertainty, and it screwed him up at the start of the year because his performance with the Giants in the first half was not good. He spent some time on the injured list. And then after the All-Star break, things just clicked, and he looked like just an elite level pitcher. He was arguably the best pitcher in baseball. And this offseason, I think it was a priority for him to sign quickly or to sign way earlier than he did before. And then when the Dodgers ended up stepping up with a 5-year, $182 million contract with around $60 million in deferrals, like along with a $52 million signing bonus, that to me, it was too good for him to pass up. And ultimately now he's on his third team in the National League West after being with the San Diego Padres and the San Francisco Giants. It adds just another elite level player to this Dodgers roster. And I know Drew is going to get frustrated by the Dodgers glazing, as he likes to refer to it, but it's the reality they've built just a juggernaut of a roster, and it's only continuing to get better. No, they are not out on some of these guys. I would imagine they'll still be in on Juan Soto to a degree, although I don't think they're necessarily the favorites there by any means. I think that's kind of a long shot. Roki Sasaki, you would have to imagine, is going to end up being in play. Teoscar Hernandez is a player who I think is going to be firmly on their radar, although I don't necessarily think anything is close there as of yesterday. I should say that. But, things can always change with one phone call. I would also imagine a Clayton Kershaw reunion is still incredibly likely. He made it very clear at the end of the year that he wanted to return to LA. So there's still a lot more movement for the Dodgers here, a lot more possibilities. But getting Blake Snell, that's a hell of a start to the offseason. Dodgers keep doing Dodgers things. And I know a lot of people are frustrated by it, but you know what? The Dodgers, they have the ability to spend. They are spending. And not many teams around baseball can say that same exact thing.
Yeah, I think all owners need to be held to a higher standard, right? If you have the money to own a professional baseball team, you have the money to be competitive on the free agent market and to improve your team and take advantage of something that has become a market inefficiency because people don't spend anymore. So you have the ability to join the fray if you're able to offer up contracts. But there's also a lot of condescension coming from people around the game to fans of small market teams. You are hearing people say sort of like, your team could be the Dodgers too. Just step up. You could do deferrals. And yes, you could be competitive, but the Cleveland Guardians will never be the Dodgers. The Cleveland Guardians will never be in California. You have to have a foundation of 3 all-stars atop your lineup and be the reigning world champions and play in a saturated media market and in a beautiful state and in a desirable location and destination. So I do think the pendulum swung a little bit too far. Teams should be competitive with their finances, but the people who pretend like, the Chicago White Sox could be the Dodgers if they woke up tomorrow and started floating and matching these contracts, that isn't true.
No, it takes a lot of different factors, as you just laid out, but it also takes an ownership group who is really willing to spend. And we've seen that in different sports where there's owners who are willing to be creative when it comes to salary structure and exactly how they go about their business. The one example I come to is Jeffrey Lurie in Philadelphia with the Eagles. He allows Howie Roseman to do a lot of different things with contractual stuff. And we're seeing Dodgers ownership giving Andrew Friedman that same exact thing. And it also, another part of this that I think is going to become more evident as the offseason goes on, is the Dodgers were truly blown away by how much money they made off of Shohei Ohtani last year. It way exceeded their expectations, and I would imagine that money that they made, obviously it's going to go into the owners' pockets, but they're also willing to reinvest it back into the roster, and we're seeing that with Blake Snell, and we're going to see that with other players this offseason. Like, the Dodgers are not done. As I said, I don't think it's going to be a Juan Soto type deal, but they're going to add some other really good players, and it's just the reality at this point is that the Dodgers have built that juggernaut. They're just going to keep doing it. They're going to keep building and building and building. And you know what? Other teams are going to get frustrated, but that being said, catch up, fight it back, try to outbid them for some of these players. I don't know what you got to do, but the Dodgers are here to stay, and they're going absolutely nowhere. Actually, they are going somewhere, just continuing to go up.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, the comforting factor is that these games are not won on paper. It was a rarity that last year's Dodgers team spent what they spent and then ended up as World Series champs. It usually isn't that linear. It is in the NBA. It is in other sports. But in baseball, it's not easy for the Dodgers to translate that huge pile of offseason spending and then just win a ring at the end of it. Like, oh, the climb was 1 year. The Padres had them on the ropes. Padres win game 4, right? And this is settled on the field, not on paper. But they let the Dodgers off the mat. The Dodgers use that momentum. Who were some of the best Dodgers players in the CS and World Series? Tommy Edman, Kike Hernandez. Like, these are lengthy rosters, and non-stars have to Shohei Ohtani's shoulder dislocated in the World Series, couldn't participate in the way that he wanted to. Your best hope of beating the Dodgers is compete with them financially, build up an infrastructure so that you're able to make the type of trades that they are from this endless pipeline of pitching talent. And then when push comes to shove, you do your best to match them. You got to just beat them on the field. Like, I know that nobody wants to hear that, but they're not automatically going to win just because they've outspent you. You spend, you can match them on the diamond.
No, games are won on the field. They're not won on paper. Like, the Dodgers are, like, they have a great team, but that does not automatically mean that they're going to win it all. And no, Drew, there's no Padres shaming on this podcast.
I was shaming the Padres. I think I was shaming the Padres.
Yeah, you were, but like, I mean, it's all good. All good. Let's move on from that kind of stuff.
Happy to. I think we should, in fact, move on to a different topic because there are many questions that do feel relevant here about how certain teams pivot. And so we know where the Dodgers are likely to pivot. We know they're probably not done, but teams like the Red Sox were immediately connected to Max Fried last night. Bob Nightingale was sort of like, they're still looking to upgrade high-end pitching market. They're still looking heavily at Max Fried. Corbin Burns was a rumored Dodgers target at some point. He's still there. He's been connected to the Orioles, loosely to the Yankees, etc. And then obviously the Mets, who felt like the Corbin Burns fit for me all along, because there aren't many teams that can sign Juan Soto and Corbin Burns, but the New York Mets are one of them. And they could make people very quickly forget about the Dodgers having a spending problem by spending $1 billion of their own money to get Juan Soto and Corbin Burns and extra pieces. So the rest of the top tier pitching market, you can add Flaherty in there nearly. What are your thoughts on maybe next steps and pivots for a couple of these other teams who are still looking and were looking at Snell?
Yeah, I think the Red Sox's natural pivot. I mean, you could just look at the Red Sox, the Orioles. You can look at all these teams that are looking for somebody starting pitching, and you can make the case for him to go turn to Max Fried, to Corbin Burns. I really think as far as the Red Sox go, like, they should continue to have conversations with Burns, with Fried, with the White Sox about Garrett Crochet, just all of these different options. Like, this is one option that's off the board, but there's still so many who are available yet. And as I mentioned on this podcast before, I think it's still a possibility for the Red Sox. Well, it's very much a possibility. What am I trying to say here? It's very much a possibility for the Red Sox to get perhaps one, maybe even two of these starting pitchers, whether it's via free agency or via trade. Maybe they dabble into both. Who knows? But they have so many different assets and resources and finances available that they can go out and do that. So, the possibilities for the Red Sox are endless. I still there's plenty of good options that are out there. Burns is going to end up making a lot of dough on free agency. Same with Fried. I don't necessarily know the timing of either of those free agencies, but I think a guy like Jack Flaherty is a very real candidate to get a contract for over $100 million. I think that is one thing that I know projections have had that online, whether it's been ESPN or MLB Trade Rumors. But that's something I've also heard from people around the game is it's possible he could do that. So there's gonna be a lot of money spent in free agency on these starting pitchers, especially the top 4, maybe top 5 guys here.
Yeah, 200 feels like a lock for Burns right now to me, yeah. And it also feels like people learn their lesson from waiting into March, from feeling what it was like to not have a spring training, to have all that uncertainty. You end up with Snell working hard to get this done quickly. You end up with, Jordan Montgomery after last year, everything that reverberated from that late signing. Matt Chapman felt comfortable in San Francisco. He does stay. Cody Bellinger opts into a deal the Cubs probably wish he hadn't. Obviously, that spring and late winter is going to linger for a long time across Major League Baseball, I would say.
No, it totally is. And we're already seeing some of the impact of last offseason coming into this offseason as well. We've seen Kikuchi come off the board with the Angels. We've seen now Blake Snell coming off the board, going to the Dodgers. And I would expect there's still going to be continue to there's going to be some more deals that come down the pipeline here early on, but I would not imagine the bulk of the activity is going to come until around the winter meetings time and then right thereafter. But these players, especially Blake Snell, I think really prioritized getting off the board early, getting that security. I mean, also when you're making $182 million, I mean, that's a pretty good deal right there. And also there's another starting pitcher who I wanted to mention as well, that I think is going to end up being kind of flying under the radar a little bit. Maybe not. I don't necessarily know how to describe it, but Nathan Eovaldi,
I think
to
he
me,
is.
yeah, he absolutely is to me. And he's a guy who has proven it in the postseason. I know he's got the 2 Tommy Johns, but his production, his leadership, and his ability to perform in big games, I think is going to make him a really intriguing candidate for some of these teams who are not going to be involved in the bidding for a Snell or a Crochet or anyone like that. I think he's a really good fallback option. I think a multi-year deal, like 2 to 3 years, would make a lot of sense for him. So I think he is one to watch in the coming weeks here, because I think whoever signs him is going to end up really reaping the rewards for it, because he's a really good pitcher.
Firmly agreed. And I also think teams like, not to mention the Yankees, but teams like the Yankees, who you hear they're talking and they had a Zoom with Blake Snell or whatnot, and fans are upset they didn't sign Blake Snell. Teams like the Yankees should be looking to pluck a Walker Buehler with incentives or sign Nathan Eovaldi, like postseason tested number 2s who are coming off down years and potentially looking to be incentivized and looking to earn one more bigger contract down the road. If you get to game 1 of the World Series and it's Snell versus Eovaldi, you would feel firmly confident with Nathan Eovaldi on the mound in that scenario. Those are the kind of people you should be targeting.
No, totally. Like, because you would go in, like, especially considering his past experience and like his overall just everything that's about him. He to me is just a guy who I would target pretty extensively. And I know that the Braves are among the teams that have shown interest in Eovaldi. I do know that. I believe it was John Morosi today mentioned the Orioles as well for a team in the Eovaldi sweepstakes. There's going to be other teams in there as well. But he has a shot to be a real impact signing, and it's also not a long-term deal. So it's short-term. To me, there's hardly any risk in that. I know it's a high AAV, but if it flops, which I think there's a pretty low percentage of that, you're not gonna have to wear that one for a while. So I think he's one. If I was one of these GMs, I'd really target him pretty extensively here.
Well, shout out to Blake Snell for upending our outline 100% by signing at 11 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday night before the show. But it gave us a lot of good fodder. Now to get to a couple of quick hits before we sign off and a few of your questions. Darren Ferguson, the UK Mets fan, teed us up by asking about realistically where we think Soto goes. Obviously, he is praying he goes to the Mets. Just want to touch on Soto because we can't go a stream without him until it's signed. From what we heard, offers were coming. Now we've heard that they're here from the Yankees, Mets, Red Sox, Toronto, and likely the Dodgers as well. John Heyman said last night that the Red Sox are stepping up in their ability to challenge the Mets and Yankees sort of atop there. They have a legitimate argument. We've made it before on this show. Waking up today, I feel like we're at 50% Mets, 35% Yankees, 15% Red Sox. That's where I am. But is this first round of offers complete? Could this all end before the winter meetings or potentially even quicker than that?
I think it's going to end up being around the winter meetings time, maybe at the winter meetings. That is my early guess on when Juan Soto eventually signs. But as far as the offers, offers have indeed been made. We've seen reports indicating that, that the offers have been made. I believe those to be true. And it's the second part of the process, because the initial process was meeting with these teams and getting a feel for the ownership and leadership groups. Now we're at the initial offer stage. This does not necessarily mean anything is close. As I said at the start of this podcast, I do not anticipate anything coming with Soto this week, especially with the holiday. But as far as where do I think he ends up going, this is always a very dangerous game. I do think that the Mets are the team to beat for Soto. I think their ability to win, their ability to compete for a World Series, as well as the owner and Steve Cohen, who can outbid anybody, makes them the team to beat. And maybe it's the Yankees end up stepping up and Hal Steinbrenner gives him an offer that Steve Cohen doesn't match, or that they end up giving identical offers, and who knows exactly what happens there. I'm still skeptical about John Henry outbidding Cohen and Steinbrenner for Soto, but my early read is that the Mets are the team to beat, and we'll see if that ends up changing, but that's where I'm at right now.
Yep, that is sort of where I am at as well. But we'll keep posted, and this should resolve before too long. We're looking at maybe another week and a half, hopefully, and then a big stage at the winter meetings. Nolan Arenado rumors came up yesterday saying that he is now rumored to be interested in moving to first base if it helps in acquiring teams' flexibility in a trade. He does not feel like the St. Louis Cardinals are set up for success. Like you said, is now looking for a new home. I'm just questioning whether that kind of neuters the point of Nolan Arenado, who's a Gold Glove third baseman over and over again, eight times, I believe. But the bat is beginning to lag, and he was roughly league average last year. So what teams are interested in Nolan Arenado, the first baseman with the regressive bat in his mid-30s? It doesn't totally compute.
So this is one of the very rare times of the Baseball Insiders where Adam and I will kind of disagree here. And it's about time. He's a very, very smart baseball man. So when I disagree with him, I'm wondering if I'm missing something. But as far as Arenado goes, like he is indeed open to moving to first base, as Katie Wu of The Athletic reported. And to me, it makes sense because if you look at Arenado, he's declining production. His salary is very, very, very high. And he's also got a no-trade clause, a full no-trade clause, which that significantly limits the amount of suitors that are going to be in on him. And he also plays third base, which, I mean, a lot of teams need third baseman. But if you end up adding first base to his arsenal, that's going to at least get maybe one or two more teams at least kicking the tires. And who knows what can end up happening from there. But to me, this is to open up the size of what is very likely a limited market for Arenado. We'll see if a trade ultimately does happen, but my feel as of right now is that he's unlikely to return to St. Louis, barring something changing in thinking and talks and whatever. But I don't believe he's going to be in St. Louis next year.
I also don't, and the Arenado Goldschmidt era was nice while it lasted. I want to bring up Alex Bregman too, just because we kind of don't that often when obscured by Juan Soto. But there was about a week and a half of momentum where I thought he was just going to kind of go find his way right back to the Astros. Made sense, mutual fit. But Bob Nightingale in a column this week had his ask closer to $200 million, with the Astros sitting at 156, which was an oddly specific number. Earlier, Ken Rosenthal, I believe, was leaking that he was entertaining the Manny Machado deal, which no, but that's very nice. Either way, who are the other suitors for Bregman if there's that big a gap between what the Astros value him at and where he perceives his own value to be?
Yeah, as far as Bregman goes, like let's say those numbers from Nightingale are accurate, and he's seeking around $200 million, and their offer that the Astros are at $156 million. That gives them a $44 million gap at the beginning of the offseason year. Like that's not a small gap, but it's also enough where you can easily find common ground. And the Astros have made it abundantly clear that he is their top priority, that they want to retain him, that they've had productive conversations with Boris. They've said all the right things. And there's also going to be other teams that are going to be involved in this as well. And two teams that I think make plenty of sense for Bregman here would be the Philadelphia Phillies and also the Detroit Tigers. The Phillies, this was only dependent on if they trade Alec Boehm, and I would not be surprised by that whatsoever if that ended up happening. But also you look at the Tigers too. They have a need in the infield. They have the clear AJ Hinch connection from their time together in Detroit or in Houston, I should say. And they have money to spend. So I think those two teams are going to end up proving to be among the most serious threats to pry Bregman away from Houston. I still don't know necessarily where he ends up, but the Astros being so confident in their answers about Bregman and stating that he's by far and away their top priority, that makes me think that they could be in the driver's seat. But free agency is an unpredictable game. You never know until the last second here. But my guess is his contract is going to hover around $200 million. That's my guess.
Interesting. Well, we'll see. We'll see who eventually steps up, whether it's just a reunion with Houston, whose window is not endless. There's some talk about farm systems in our chat right now. The Astros farm is significantly lacking. According to experts, they always seem to produce major league talent. So maybe it's actually not. But according to the evaluators, the well may finally be running dry there.
Oh, and also I want to address this from Vincent because I've seen him ask this exact question.
I was gonna send you Vincent, and yeah, let's get into it.
So Vincent, the Angels, they entered the offseason making it clear that they were going to target every single position, whether it was starting pitching, whether it was catching, whether it was infield, outfield, relief pitching, you name it. They were going to be on it. And they've talked to almost every agent and every team about every single scenario. Like Perry is very thorough when it comes to that. I think that's what makes him such a promising executive. And he's had a good offseason so far. I think as of this point, starting pitching is probably going to be on the back burner for them. Catching is obviously going to end up being not a primary focus anymore with having Logan O'Hoppe and Travis d'Arnaud behind the plate there. But other than that, I would look at them trying to have as many conversations about upgrading almost every part of the roster. Like they are, they're just going to see what's out there. They're going to see exactly what best fits them and from a value standpoint. So I can't give you any targets necessarily, but Perry is being very thorough.
Got a lot of interesting stuff in the comments, and I appreciate your questions as always. Thanks, Vincent. Happy to get to you. Mr. Classic is debating himself about how much work the Yankees need. I think he's forgetting which team won the American League last year. The Yankees do need lots of work, yes, absolutely, but they won the American League, so they're not one of the worst teams in baseball. They are. Soto is not enough for the Mets or Yankees or Red Sox. I would disagree. He was enough to take the Yankees to the World Series last year. The Mets almost made the World Series as well and could certainly use the infusion of Juan Soto. And he'd be a good fit in Boston, who has an incredible farm. You've been praising other teams' farms in the comments, but not praising the Red Sox farm. They might have the best of all. Anyway, I'll stop antagonizing the commenters who are bothering me. Let's talk about, I've seen questions, Matty Rice, about a Garrett Crochet trade. And there's also a lot of Twitter buzz right now. Just in terms of the Crochet market. So I figured it would be good to touch on Crochet while we're talking about all these alternatives to Snell. What do you feel like the White Sox are valuing right now in their Crochet asks? And do you anticipate, what's the timeline you anticipate on Crochet?
I would not be surprised whatsoever if Crochet was traded this offseason. I think their interest now, well, I can say take the words I think out of there. Like the interest involving Crochet is far more extensive than it was at the deadline. And Chris Getz has been on record in saying that. And there's been a lot of different teams who have entered the sweepstakes. And you can look at teams such as Philadelphia, you can look at Baltimore, you can look at Boston. There's a lot of these different teams who make sense for Crochet. And the White Sox are going to be in position where they can really end up getting a lot in return for him. He is signed cheap. He is going to be open to an extension, as evidenced by his demands at the deadline, or what he ended up wanting at the deadline, I should say. I don't necessarily know the exact time frame on that. That could be a winter meetings kind of a deal. But Chris Getz he made a very smart decision in not moving Crochet at the deadline. He had some intriguing stuff at the moment, but held on, hoping that the market would be far more extensive in the offseason. And here we are now. So he's got a very vast market. That much I can tell you.
Perfect. I do think that is something to watch, especially, hey, price just maybe went up a little bit. Like if you were hoping to get an elite lefty and you didn't sign Blake Snell, all right, what are you willing to surrender? We're looking for major league talent. We're looking for top tier prospect talent, etc. Well, appreciate everybody joining us today. Final show before the Thanksgiving weekend. I don't know if we expected Snell to go down when it did. I think we were hoping for maybe a little bit of a breather heading into the Thursday and the feast. We did not receive it, but it gave us a lot of fuel for today's show. So Robert Murray, I could not have done this without you, and I hope you have a good holiday, dude, because you've earned it and we've earned it, and I'm gonna eat a lot of pies. I've been told there are 6 pies at my home, which is too many for the amount of people that are gonna be there.
That just means you have to eat all the pies and not have to, because calories don't count on Thanksgiving. I heard. Yeah, that's per sources, they do not count on Thanksgiving. So enjoy your holiday, everyone. I wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Everyone here at the Baseball Insiders wishes you all a happy Thanksgiving. We will see you back here next week. Enjoy the football tomorrow. Enjoy the food. Go Birds. And yeah, I appreciate you, Adam. And appreciate Sean Daly, our producer for the day. Joanne is not here today, but we have Sean Daly who's driving the bus. We appreciate you. He says Saquon for MVP. That's why Sean knows ball. We appreciate you, Sean.
We do appreciate it, although I think I don't know why we're talking about Saquon. The main event tomorrow is, of course, Drew Lock against Micah Parsons without his 2 starting tackles. So everybody make sure, get some coffee, stay up. Make sure you don't fall asleep after eating your turkey. You got to be attentive for Cowboys Giants. That's going to be an exciting watch. No, definitely take a nap during that god-awful game. And Tua at the Packers should be more exciting. So watch the Lions nap for approximately 3 hours and 25 minutes, and then watch the night game.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to address this because I don't want Drew to have a meltdown in the comments here. Question for the show: with Snell signing with the Dodgers, will it make AJ Preller more aggressive? Preller is always aggressive, but I don't believe he has a lot of financial flexibility this offseason, so that's going to make it tough. But he is not going to react just because the Dodgers are making a move. That is when mistakes happen, and I don't believe their aggressiveness is going to lead to more Padres' moves or more like aggressive moves. So he's going to continue doing what he does. He's already got a very talented roster. He's going to supplement it in responsible ways. So that is what I can tell you.
Well, there you go. Take care, everybody. Really appreciate the questions today. We'll see you back here on Monday. And based on the way and the speed which things moved yesterday, we're going to end up with some information, I presume. So turn your notifications on. Join the Baseball Insiders YouTube channel. If you haven't joined us in the Discord, we'll certainly be active there throughout the weekend for sure. But until Monday, Robert, thank you for all you do. And thanks for carrying us today.
No, hey, thank you for driving the bus and leading the ship here. The show is not possible without you, Adam. I wish you happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your pies. You deserve it. And I'll see you before too long.
Everybody out there, enjoy your pies. We will see you on Monday.
Thank you, everybody.